If you had one shot or one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted in one moment, would you capture it or just let it slip? Yo. His palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. There's vomit on his sweater already. Mom's spaghetti, he's nervous, but on the surface he looks calm and ready to drop bombs. But he keeps on forgetting what he wrote down. The whole crowd goes so loud, he opens his mouth, but the words won't come out. He's choking how? Everybody's choking now. The clock's run out, time's up, over, loud. Snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. Oh, there goes rabbit. He choke. He's so mad, but he won't give up. Daddies, he know he won't have it. He knows his whole back to these ropes. It don't matter, he's dope. He knows that, but he's broke. He's so stacked that he knows when he goes back to this mobile home, that's when it's back to the lab again, yo. This old rhapsody better go back to this moment and hope it don't pass him.
Well, listen, we can talk about the flag, but let's talk about the team. Wait.
And a very good morning, a very good NFL draft morning to each and every one of you. Welcome to Trending in the AM live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know that drill. Like button, share button, retweet button, smash them all. Share it out everywhere you can. If you're over on YouTube, thumbs up. And the subscribe button, greatly appreciated as we continue to grow this DSM family here. It's also on YouTube, the best place to get involved with the show. It's where you can put your comments, your questions, your thoughts right in the comment section. And I can put them right up on the screen here and discuss them right away. Fly, Eagles, fly. That is right. So this is the final NFL and Eagles draft preview show. We're going to have a special guest here join us very shortly, with the show, and we're going to break it all down. There's so much to go over here. We've been talking all week about the NFL draft, and for weeks, on end about the NFL draft. It all accumulates tonight with the first round, which is the most important round. The Eagles have the two picks, the 15th and the 18th pick, and so much can happen with those two picks. And there's so much volatility that can happen in the first round of the draft. So we really don't know. So we're going to play out some different scenarios, different things that can happen in this first round that will kind of determine and kind of dictate what Howie Roseman and the Eagles do. And I think there's, I was part of the Ref the District. They did a live mock draft. I sent in my pick. I made my pick. And while I don't agree with the way that mock draft went down and who I had to take at 18, it just goes to show there's boatloads of different scenarios on, how this could play out, whether the Eagles stay at 15, whether they trade up to 10, as Chris Mail said the other day on the show. There's so many different scenarios that can happen, whether they stay at 15, whether they trade back at 15, whether they stay at 18, move 18 up, move 18 back. The odds are that they don't take 15 and 18. They could be somewhere in the 10 and 22 range. They can move up to 6. There's been rumors there. There's going to be players that could potentially be moved. The Andre Dillards, the Jalen Reagors, the Gardner Minshews of the world could get moved tonight. There's so much that can happen. And how the top half of the draft shakes out is going to dictate that. And that's what we're going to talk about a lot today. What position will we go on a massive run of wide receivers? That changes things, where then the Eagles have to move up to get the guy they want. Will quarterbacks start to go? So teams will want to trade up with the Eagles to jump other teams so that they can get the quarterback of their choice, or trade up ahead of the Eagles to get the quarterback that they want. So making other guys fall down. And as my man is saying, so that then they can take the best player available. I know Mark's been on that all for a while now. He wants the best player available, 15 and 18, no movement, no trade assets. There's some that will say that this draft, it's deep, but it lacks that top-end elite talent. So trading up might be a risk for a guy that's not going to pay off that value long-term that you have to spend to move up. So we're going to talk all those different scenarios there. And I think it's important to realize that what's going to happen tonight, anything. That there's literally whatever we say is going to happen, whatever Todd McShay and Mel Kiper and all the experts say, the odds of it happening are slim to none. It is going to be one of the most volatile, I guess the word volatile is the word I want to say, first rounds of the draft. The first 15, 18 picks, Who the hell knows what's going to happen? Weak first round, only 10 or so players worthy of first round status, in his opinion, looking for trading, down team for teams. Yeah. I mean, I can say it. I can see trades happening down for the Eagles. I definitely can. And I think it's something that be prepared for. We're gonna be sitting there. We're gonna be waiting for them to move up, and then 15's gonna come and they're gonna trade back, and it's like we gotta wait longer. It's a very possibility when you look at the first round. First off, the thing that I want to point out here that's insane. So the first 13 picks in the draft, the Jets hold 2 of them, the Texans hold 2 of them, and the Giants hold 2 of them. So 6 of the first 13 picks are held by 3 teams. All right, so our special guest is joining us here on the I Have No Sponsor hotline. Let me put his thing up on the screen here. He's my man. We all know him as Joe Castro, Mr. Philly, the podcast man. Joe Castro, how you doing this morning?
Good, man. Good. My bad for being late. I'm a terrible morning person, so I appreciate you bringing me on.
Dude. That's the problem with this morning show. It's tough to get people awake and ready to go. But thanks for joining me this morning, my friend.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure. I'm looking forward to a beautiful draft morning, man. This is gonna be a long day.
That's all we're gonna talk about. But I am gonna make one joke. Okay, one joke to get it started. I just thought the stress and anxiety of coming on this big morning show with me maybe caused some back pain. So maybe you were just not going to show up.
Yeah, it's a mental thing that is causing that back pain. Yeah, no, I'm tired of him too. Don't worry, I'm tired of him too.
For those who don't know, he is Mr. Joe Castro here. He's one of the biggest Eagles fans there are out there. We love his podcast, but for somehow he's a Nets fan too. So he's gone through the pain of Ben Simmons just like we have.
Yeah, I will say this. I will say this much about Ben Simmons. Like, personally, I really don't care. Like, I don't blame him for us being bad this year. That wasn't on him. Obviously, the distraction that he caused was annoying and all that. But what happened on the court was everybody that was on the court and our coach's fault. Like, I don't really blame him. But it is getting annoying at this point. Like, I didn't really expect Ben Simmons to play this year, but it's getting annoying getting all those text messages and all the memes that I get, because obviously all my friends are Sixers.
All the hype videos have been practicing. You guys are falling for it for 4 years now, the hype videos. And then they leave.
He was shooting in the gym so beautifully. I thought it was going to be something. I don't know. But no, I really never had any hope for him. I was more excited about Drummond, if I'm being 100% honest. I felt like Drummond is what we really, really needed. And then he went ahead and got like 4 minutes in the second half of game 4. But that's neither here nor there, I guess. It is what it is.
It's funny because it sucks because the Eagles, this night should be all about the Eagles. But unfortunately, we got that Sixers-Raptors game, looming that we're going to be watching and flipping back and forth, as this night goes on. But, Joe, let's talk the draft. Let's talk the Eagles. And what I've been talking about all week is I hate to use the word volatile because it's not the right word. But the top half of this draft, there's so much that can happen. And what all these other teams do will dictate what the Eagles and Howie Roseman do. And I just said, 6 of the first 13 picks are held by 3 teams. And what they do with those picks, whether they trade them, whether they pick them, whether they move up, move down, what position goes on the first run off the board, it's Howie Roseman better not have a plan A and a plan B. He better have a plan A, B, C, and D tonight because so much is going to happen tonight. I think this is going to be one of the most unpredictable first hour and a half of an NFL draft we've seen in a really long time. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think if you look at the top of this draft, like I was talking to Sam Monson from PFF, and I asked him, like, are you a buyer or seller of this draft, right? And I think he said it perfectly. Like, the top 15, there's nobody in this top 15 of the draft that you're sitting here like, I have to have him for the next 15 years. So, honestly, I think it will be crazy, but I think it'll be crazy in the sense of you'll see a lot of players that you don't necessarily think should go where they go. 1 and 2, I think you'll see a lot of trades. I think a lot of these teams are very willing to move back. Like you said, I was doing the like preparation for the draft, live show tonight that I'm doing all the like draft cards. And I'm like, wait, I'm missing a couple. But like you said, 6 of these teams are picking twice. So there's only 24, 25 different teams that are actually picking in the first round. So you might see teams come back into the first round. You might see teams try to fall all the way back in this first round. So I think it's going to be insane, but I think it's going to be a good insane. I think that this is a very deep draft. So I think the top 15 might have a lot of whoa. I didn't see that happening. But after that, I think you'll start to see kind of people going where they belong because there's so much talent at a lot of different positions. There's not really one position outside of quarterback because every year that's a position that they'll reach at. But I don't think that you're making a huge reach.
Great segue because I keep talking about this week that one position is going to dictate whether it's quarterback, wide receiver, edge rusher. One position is going to dictate the flow of those first 15, 20 picks. And I know everyone's saying it's a weak quarterback class. I disagree to an extent. I mean, it's not awful, but it's a quarterback-driven league.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of teams that need a quarterback. Houston, Pittsburgh, New Orleans. There's 4, 5, 6 teams that need a quarterback. Detroit. I've mocked a couple times Detroit taking a quarterback at 2. I know a lot of people got them taking the Riddler, at the 32nd pick in a lot of their mock drafts. But who's to say that they didn't fall in love with Malik Willis and decide, you know what, we're just going to take him at number 2. And that just changes everything. Literally, if Detroit takes a Malik Willis at number 2, it completely changes everything. So, there's so much that can happen. Do you think it's going to play out like most are saying, that the quarterbacks are going to kind of fall? Maybe Carolina at 6, but most of them fall back. Or do you think it's going to be like I said, 1 or 2 teams decide to jump up to get their quarterback? Because we see it every year. I mean, we were talking yesterday about Mitchell Trubisky. The Bears a few years ago trading way up. They fell in love with the guy, and that changed literally the trajectory of so many. Look, Kansas City does not get Patrick Mahomes if that doesn't happen. So is the quarterback position going to dictate it this year?
I think in a sense it will. Like if Detroit Lions stay at number 2 and they go ahead and pick a quarterback, then I think it changes a lot of the mindset of a lot of different teams in that top 15. But at the most, I think that you're seeing like 2 quarterbacks go. I think that Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis will probably be the first 2. Do I think that they should be? Maybe not, but I think that the Lions like Malik Willis, and I think that the Carolina Panthers are at the very worst okay with Kenny Pickett. So I think that might be where you see the quarterbacks go, but I don't really see anybody trading up for a quarterback. My biggest fear is that 2 or 3 quarterbacks don't go, and then you have Howie Roseman sitting at 15 with one of the top 3 quarterbacks in his lap. So that's a little bit worrisome for me. I just don't see the sense in moving up in this draft because there isn't that many QB needy teams. A lot of the teams that need a quarterback, I kind of already got them. Right?
I actually think that if Pickett or Willis happen to fall at 15, I think that puts the Eagles in a fantastic spot. Because
if you had a smart GM, if you didn't have a quarterback hungry GM,
that puts Pittsburgh wanting to jump New Orleans at 16 to get Pickett or Malik Willis. Yeah. So that puts us in a position where instead of having 15 and 18, we might end up with 18, 20 and an additional second round pick. And that to me would be fine. And that's the thing I keep looking at. Where the Eagles stay at 15 and 18, they move up from 15, they move down from 18. Wherever the Eagles go, they're literally the odds of them picking 15 and 18 are really slim. There's going to be trades up, there's going to be trades back, there's going to be so much. So if it's not wide receiver, what position do you think will be the position that goes on the run where 3, 4, 5 guys, same position, just go off the board, bing, bang, boom, and change everything?
I think it's going to be cornerback, to be honest. I think cornerback and safety. Safety, I think, is going to be a sneaky one because I don't think there's a lot of starting level like safeties in this draft. I think there's maybe like 4, maybe 5, depending on how you feel like on those, edge guys like the Jalen Petrie, Lewis Kine kind of guys. I think Lewis Kine is probably a starter, but Jalen Petrie's kind of a – but anyways, safety's a not as deep of a position, so I could see once Daxton Hill goes, after Kyle Hamilton, then somebody kind of getting a little bit like, all right, we got to get these last couple guys that are here. Cornerback, kind of the same thing. Like I see after like the top 3 or 4, a lot of projects. Like I like Kyler Gordon out of Washington. I don't mind Martin Emerson. There's a couple cornerbacks that aren't too bad. once you get into the second, third round, Kyer Elam might be there. But I think once you get out of those top guys in the cornerback room, there's a big drop off. Same thing with safety. So I think those two. I think edge position might go on a run just because there's so many good players. But like when I think of a run, I start thinking of like a run. To me, is so many of the players are going off, and it's a position that once you get there, if you don't take a position, the next time it comes around, you're not going to have that high level of talent. Like with wide receiver, you could see a run in the first round and still have a starting level talent in the second round. Same thing with like linebacker, wide receiver, whatever you really want. There's a couple different positions that are like that. But as far as cornerback and safety goes, I think that if you start seeing a run go on that, like if you see Daxton Hill go in the top 15, you might want to go ahead and take Jaquan Brisker at 18 or something like that and just kind of bite the bullet because we need a safety. And I don't think that the safety position's that deep this year.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, I had Chris Mail on earlier this week, and he spent a lot of time talking about, Brisker and Kyle Hamilton, and the fact that do not be surprised if, depending on how the runs go with the first 5, 6, 7 picks, the Kyle Hamilton doesn't start to fall. And, the Eagles, moving up from 15 to 10 is not going to cost a whole hell of a lot. Yeah. And Kyle Hamilton could, if you would have told me 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, that Kyle Hamilton to the Eagles was a legit possibility, I would have told you were. I called. I don't know if you know my man Swagman on Twitter. He does some great work writing fantasy and draft stuff. Dude, he told me the Eagles were going to pick Hamilton at 15 4 weeks ago, and I legitly on Twitter told him he was crazy. But if you tell me now that there's a chance of getting him at 10, before, like, as soon as the season ended, my two goals were in this draft. I wanted Kyle Hamilton and I wanted Jameson Williams. They were my two favorite players in this draft. And there's a legit possibility that one of those two guys comes to the Eagles. Yeah. And Kyle Hamilton, could you imagine, and I said this on yesterday's show with Jason, that I'm not comparing their talent and their skills, their specific skill set, but what they could do for a franchise. Kyle Hamilton could do for the Eagles what Ryan Dawkins did, what Ed Reed did for Baltimore, what Troy Polamalu did for Pittsburgh. They're different style of safeties, but the overall big picture of what they could do for the trajectory of the franchise, Kyle Hamilton could do that. And just the lack of importance that's put in the draft on the safety position is causing him to fall, and could be a steal for us, in this draft.
Yeah, and if you look at, like, a lot of people will say, like, you look at how the Eagles draft, they don't necessarily value safety. They don't necessarily value, linebacker, cornerback, which you can kind of argue is true. But you can also make the argument that they don't know how to evaluate those players. And they're never in a position like they are right now where it's almost a no miss. You can't miss. You at 15, there are so many prospects at positions that you need. That is going to be very, like, you literally have to scroll all the way down your draft board in order to miss, in my opinion. Like, if you're sitting at 15 and Devin Lloyd's there, Kyer Elam, Trent McDuffie, depending on how you feel about him, I guess. We're going to talk about that, I'm sure. Andrew Booth.
I got to queue it up.
There's a lot of good players. There's a lot of good players in this draft at the first round that I feel like are, I don't want to say can't miss, because obviously you never know, but I feel like they're very solid prospects. So this is a very rare situation for the Eagles. We're usually bottom 20 when it comes to the NFL draft picks, which isn't a bad thing. So, I trust us in these top 15 picks. Not, I don't know. I'm weird like that. So I think that we're gonna hit on somebody.
So I just talked about trading up for Kyle Hamilton. We talked about this yesterday. I'm not moving up much past 10. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, Jason, my co-host most mornings, for certain talented players, how far is there a player in this draft that you think you would move up into the 5th, the 6th spot, the 4th? Like, how far up would you move for somebody in this draft that you really like? Or is there nobody that you are, like, so enamored with that? Like me, I love Kyle Hamilton. Unrealistically speaking, I'd probably move up to 7 or 8 to get him, but I don't think you would need to. Jason yesterday was like, for Tibbs, if Tibbs falls out of the top 3, he would move up to 6 to get Tibbs if he fell that far. And I'm like, I don't know if I would move up that far because of the cost and whatnot. But is there a player that you would move up drastic amounts to go get?
nobody I'm like pounding the table for. Like I nobody that we have. Like if Kayvon Thibodeau does drop to 16 and 6 and we can get him, I wouldn't be against it. I wouldn't be against getting Sauce. I wouldn't be against getting Kyle Hamilton, but probably those are the two more likely. Like I think you can still get a good edge rusher even in the second round. Like obviously he's not going to be Kayvon Thibodeau, but I don't think that the gap between a Cave and people are going to probably think I'm crazy for saying this, but I don't think that the gap between a Kayvon Thibodeau and a Nick Bonito in the second round is like massive. I don't think it's Joey Bosa versus some random dude in the second round. I think that these guys aren't that far off. You know, a lot of these guys are pretty old too. They've been playing football for a while now. So I think that at the edge rusher position, I'm not gonna do anything too drastic. When it comes to cornerback or safety, like I said, I feel like those positions are not as deep. So if you want to go up and get Sauce, if you want to go up and get Stingley, if you want to go up and get Kyle Hamilton, I'm not against it. It just really depends on how much it costs. I don't want to give up too much. I like the depth.
I really thought you were going to say you were going to move up and as whatever it took to get Sauce. That's from what I've been following.
Yeah.
I thought you were a Sauce guy. I really did.
I like Sauce. I like all these guys. Don't get me wrong. My thing is, I just don't want to give up our depth in this draft. I think that there's a lot of good players in this draft. I really do. So, like, I do love Sauce, but look, if it's going to cost you, your two first, I'm not doing that. If it's going to cost you a first and a second, I'm not doing all that. Just get the guy you can get at 15. But if you can get Sauce, by all means, don't let me stop you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I will not be mad at it. But I just like the depth that we have. We have so many picks in this draft. I'd almost rather trade up in the second round or trade back into this end of the second round and get somebody that you really like towards that end of the second round. So that's where I say I love Sauce.
Because you could trade up for Sauce, or like I said, we both were part of Ref the District's mock draft. It was actually really cool. I watched a little bit of it last night.
It was fun.
My part of it and stuff like that. Some of the ones in between there, and I remember getting, and this was what was sent to me from the guys over there at Ref the District. This was where the mock draft was when it was my turn to pick. Okay, this is where it was. And this just shows how volatile it was. We'll get to our picks at the beginning later. But, Jacksonville, we're all assuming that they're taking Hutchinson. Evan Neal could go overall to Jacksonville.
Even Ike Ekwonu.
Dude, I'm a gambling man. It's right now 30-1 that Neal goes 1 to Jacksonville. Why not?
Yeah. That's not a bad bet.
You got yourself a franchise potential quarterback, a new a new coach. You go get the best tackle in the draft to protect your young quarterback.
Yeah, and not just that, they just re-signed their tackle. Yeah, they just re-signed their tackle, and Evan Neal's a guy that a lot of people were saying he could kick into guard. So worst case scenario, he doesn't have to be your tackle. He could be your guard right now if that's what you want to do. But even Ike Ekwonu is a guy that people are talking about. Trayvon Walker is a guy I said in the beginning of this offseason, right before the playoffs, I should say, right before the game against Tampa, I made two mock drafts, and I had no line. You can see it on my Twitter still. I had Jermaine Johnson in one, and I had Trayvon Walker in another. Both of them, I had them towards the end of the first round, and people were saying I was crazy. People were telling me these are second-round guys. You don't know. You got to start watching college football. It's a lot of fun, Joe. And now look at these guys. Trayvon Walker is a big bet to go in the number one. Jermaine Johnson's looking like his dead end spot is the number 10 spot with the Jets. So, I mean, it's crazy how this board has changed up, and it just changes every day.
And the way this draft played out, you had obviously Tibbs going 2 over Hutchinson. That's insane in my opinion. But still, you had the edge guys going. You had Williams go 4 to the Jets, which that's high even for him. But you had the wide receiver, Williams. You had 1, 2, 3. Before I picked at 18, 4 wide receivers off the board. Before you picked at 15, you had multiple of the top cornerbacks go off the board. So the way this played out exactly what I said. The wide receivers went on a run. You at 15. You had Garrett Wilson on the board to take that wide receiver, but you went Trent McDuffie. Now, we weren't allowed to make trades in this draft.
Yeah.
I think if this board plays out the way it did at 15, Howie's MO would be to take the wide receiver or to trade back. But you like Trent McDuffie, don't you?
I don't mind Trent McDuffie. First, I will say, I would have called up Washington if that was a possibility. Like we did, I do a show every Sunday with my boy James, and it's called Best of Enemies. We do like a mock draft with a different content creator from different teams. He's a Cowboys guy. So last week, long story short, we had a Washington guy on, right? And we were doing the mock draft, and it was a good talking point because it ended up kind of like this, where they obviously want a wide receiver. Derek Stingley was still on the board. I know I'm going to have to jump in Minnesota. So this is a type of situation I would have loved to say, here's an extra third, Washington, take our 15 and our third. We're going to move up to 11, and we're going to take Derek Stingley. So with that said, I would have loved to have done that. Trent McDuffie, I realistically picked Trent McDuffie to start a conversation. I do like Trent McDuffie, don't get me wrong. But I think that he's somebody that a lot of people are kind of, I don't want to say hating on or sleeping on, but like, I think that they're a little bit low on him. And I think that he's a lot better than a lot of people give him credit for. Obviously, the size, the length is something that people are a little bit worried about, but I don't know, man. And shout out to Ref the District, but they're crazy for the first thing they're bringing up is Washington. Like realistically, tomorrow or today, Washington might have two cornerbacks going off. Kyler Gordon is fast beyond fast, so I wouldn't be surprised if he goes. These guys, I understand the feeling about Washington, but I just don't have. I don't look at the school realistically. I look at the player. You look at this guy's technique. Like I said, he's just a technical, savvy guy, playmaker. He's small, but there's a lot of small guys in this world, and they deserve a chance too. So I like Trent McDuffie. I think if he was 6'1", 6'2", he might be the best player in this draft, to be real with you. Like, he's that good. I think he would be talked about like Ahmad Sars Gardner if he was just a couple inches taller. That's really the only thing holding him back, in my opinion. But even then, you don't have a solidified answer to what's gonna replace Maddox in a couple years at the very worst. So I wouldn't be mad if he became the next All-Pro slot guy. It is what it is. We need a cornerback, and that was the best guy available.
We need a cornerback. We need a safety. We need we need so much, and that's the only thing with trading up and trading. We need a lot of help, and we need young help on this team. So just staying put. And my man Mark always keeps saying on this show, take the best player available at each draft slot because he knows the importance of what we need now. So now, when I got to me at 18 and all the wide receivers were off the board, I didn't like my pick. I didn't like my chance. And I know I messaged you. I'm like, oh man, you really set me up for a tough call here. So my whole MO and theory is to study what Howie has done. And the question is going to be, has Howie changed or not? But at 18, you're like, well, take the linebacker. But Howie doesn't draft linebackers.
Yeah,
he just doesn't put the value. So I went with what Howie does. I don't think I can remember a draft where Howie's not focused in on edge rushers. So I took George Karlaftis at 18 because he was, in my opinion, the best out of the ones that were left on the board. Now, the question is, are we starting to see a different Howie? Might we see the safety or the cornerback or maybe even a linebacker in the first round? Did last year's draft, getting Devontae Smith, the Alabama guy, getting Landon Dickinson, the Alabama guy, more surefire things versus the projects, which actually, I don't watch a boatload of college football. But from what I've read, George Karlaftis is more of an old school, typical Howie guy, a high motor, high upside guy that could also turn into be the next Marcus Smith. You know what I mean? That like his most he ever had was like 7 sacks in a season.
George Karlaftis played on a horrible defensive line. Obviously, Purdue's not premier school, but George Karlaftis is that guy you have to turn on his tape to really appreciate what he does. He really is just a lunch. He's a Philly guy. He's a lunch pail, hard hat, just going to go to work. And he has a boatload of pass rushing moves. Like he is. He's that guy that, if a book could play football, that's how it would look. Like he's just a very technical guy. So he's not the flashiest in the world, but I think he's a really good player. I'm not mad at that pick.
There's a point in some mock drafts a month ago he was a top 10, prospect. It's crazy how over the course of all the workouts and pro days, this board just keeps changing. But the question is, are we going to see a different Howie this draft? Or is it going to be, I always say, follow the MO. This is what he does. He's got a track record. We know what he is. He's edge rusher, defensive ends, defensive tackles, offensive linemen, and wide receivers. That's his MO in first rounds. He does not pick outside of those 4 positions in the first round. He doesn't. So, when people want all these safeties and these cornerbacks, I keep saying it's going to be edge and wide receiver because that's what he does. But some people are trying to tell me that he's a different man now.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, if any year was going to be the year that he changed his stance up about linebackers, would have been last year. Micah Parsons, I think, was a clear cut, top 10 guy. So I think that would have been the year. Devin Lloyd and Nakobe Dean, I love both of them. I like Christian Harris. I like Leo Chanel. I like a lot of these linebackers. They're not Micah Parsons. Brandon Smith even came from Penn State. Love Brandon Smith. He's rising up draft boards, but he's no Micah Parsons. So I don't see him changing that philosophy for this year. Yeah, I don't see him changing. Maybe for safety. That's like really the only thing I see him kind of changing up at 18, because the more that I look at it, if you do get a call at 18 from like the Steelers or, the Chiefs want to move up and get whoever the best, wide receivers left or whoever it may be that wants to get a wide receiver, Packers might be a guy that a team that calls. Once you move back, now you're into safety territory. Now you're into, you can still most likely get the best or second, third best safety on the board. So I think that if you do move back, you're looking safety, maybe wide receiver, maybe O-line. Maybe you move back and still get like a Tyler Lindenbaum, something like that, because they feel comfortable. Like you said, they feel comfortable in the trenches. So I'm not going to knock them on that. Like I'm not mad at that.
I'm a big guy. I'm a trench guy. I always call myself the trench warfare guy when it comes to football. I love strong offensive lines and strong. If you look at the best teams that have the most long-term continued success, they got great offensive lines. They got great defensive lines. That's where you win. Those 2 positions in quarterback. Now, we're not drafting a quarterback in this draft. I don't even think we take one in like the 6th or 7th.
Never say never.
I know.
Never say never.
There isn't another Carson. Maybe Howie sees the name Carson on the board in the second round. It's like, it's just a natural habit. Just click. Send that in. But no, we're not taking a quarterback in the 1st or 2nd round. I can without a doubt, I would put the bet down now that we do not take a quarterback in the 1st or 2nd round. But now I lost. But so that's the importance. It's quarterback and it's line. And our offensive line is really good, but our defensive line has a lot of question marks. So I still think that one of those 2 picks is going to turn. If we do not come out of the 1st round, if we make 2 picks, wherever they may be, and one of them is not a defensive lineman, I would be completely shocked. Even if it's defensive. What's his name? He keeps falling down people's boards all the time now. Trayvon Walker, originally a top 5-6 guy, could fall to 12, 15. He's there at 15. Don't be surprised.
Yeah, I would love Trayvon Walker. I would love him. And that's the type.
A lot of people talking about, everyone keeps talking trash on these Georgia tackles. And I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I think that the name of the game this draft is versatility. If you look at a lot of these defensive linemen, like Trayvon Walker is a good example. Jermaine Johnson, kind of, not really, but Devontae Wyatt is another guy. Like a lot of these guys can play multiple positions. Like Trayvon Walker, if you really want him to, he can stand up, take his hand out the dirt and be a linebacker for you. So I think you look at a lot of these guys, and that's what their biggest that's why I think a guy like Trayvon Walker might go ahead of somebody like a Kayvon Thibodeau, somebody like a Aiden Hutchinson, just because of that upside, just because of that, he could become this. And that shows you how good this draft is at the top end. They're really more so taking what a player might be than what they are right now, because right now you have so many guys that are around the same thing. And you look at the COVID year, that really helped a lot of college prospects, because now you got that super senior, you got that 6th year for a lot of these kids. So then now they're coming in at like 24 years old. So how much do you factor in a 24-year-old now going crazy against a bunch of 20-year-olds, in their last year? Because you look at a Jermaine Johnson, he really only had one big year of production. Trayvon Walker really didn't have amazing production. It's really just what he's done on film. You look at a couple of these guys, it's like they had one big year of production, and it was when they were 24 going against a bunch of, 20, 21-year-olds at the most. So I don't know. I think this is a really weird draft. I think you're going to see a lot of potential getting drafted over players that you're like, he's way better right now.
Yeah. So then what is tonight at 8:00, draft starts, Eagles picking 15. Your dream scenario when you wake up tomorrow morning and tune into the morning show tomorrow, where me and Jason are breaking down the round one of the draft, what would be your dream scenario? So when I lead off the show, welcome to Trending in the AM, the Eagles selected this and did this as my recap. What is your dream scenario that you're going to hear me recapping tomorrow morning?
I don't know if I have like a certain player. I would love to say that we walked out of there with like the best cornerback on the board, and then whatever. I really don't care. Like, like as long as you don't reach. I'll put it this way. As long as I wake up in the morning and I don't hear the Philadelphia Eagles took, I don't know who the hell this guy is. Like you remember when the Eagles picked Marcus Smith? I don't want to feel that again. I don't want to be like, who? Like I be on Facebook all the time. Yeah, I'm on Facebook all the time, and I see all my Facebook memories around this time, looking back at these drafts. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want to go through that again. I don't want to go through like, who the hell did we just pick? I would love to walk out of here with a cornerback and a linebacker. I know that the latter is probably very unlikely, but I would love for that to happen. If I heard Devin Lloyd's name or Nakobe Dean, or even if they reached and took Christian Harris, I would sit there and be like, okay, Howie, who is this man? Who are you, Howie? And what have you done with the real Howie? Because
just to bring back those Facebook memories, this morning, my Facebook memory was, I do not like the pick that the Eagles just made. And it said 2011. And I had to double check. That was the Danny Watkins draft. Yeah. So we are on the anniversary of the Eagles drafting Danny Watkins here. So that is definitely what you don't want.
Oh God! I mean, and I always say this on my show, and maybe it's like me being an optimist a little bit too much, but we've done well in the top 15. Like I can't think, even Derek Barnett I think was like number 14. Barnett's not great, but he's not a terrible player. He's a productive player. He's just makes a lot of bonehead mistakes, but he's not a terrible player. So I think in the top 15 we haven't done terribly. So I feel comfortable, and especially if they try to move up, I feel comfortable that they'll pick a good player. But that 18th pick kind of gets a little bit worrisome. How smart, how big brain Howie's going to try and get during this draft gets a little bit worrisome. And I am worried about quarterbacks. I'm not going to lie. I am worried that the Eagles are going to take a quarterback. I feel like it's going to tempt him so much.
I haven't had you on this show in a long time. Maybe I had you on when I was doing night shows only, not the morning show. Where is your stance then on Jalen Hurts?
I think Jalen Hurts is a great guy. I think, look, I think
I love when people say that.
People call me a Jalen Hurts hater. It is what it is. I think that he is what he is. I think that, he has to obviously improve this year. I think that he earned it this year. He can definitely prove me wrong this year. But right now, I just don't believe he has the necessary arm talent nor the necessary mind to be the type of quarterback that the Eagles want. If we are willing to change how our offense is and mold it around him, then awesome. He can fit what he is, but right now he is what he is. So I love everything about him except for a lot of the stuff I see on Sundays, which is obviously the biggest part. A lot of people, there was somebody on Twitter that was trying to I think they were seriously trying to have this conversation. And they were like, the only thing he can't do is throw the ball. And I'm like, that's kind of an important part of being a quarterback. That's kind of the main reason why he's back there holding the ball all the time. So I don't hate the guy. I'm not, on the biggest train of saying this guy's got to go. Let's upgrade now. And I don't think that there's really any quarterbacks in this draft that are, a crazy upgrade to him. So he's our quarterback, and I got his back. But I do think that the Eagles need to keep their eyes open in case they can upgrade. And if he doesn't get better, it's got to be something they got to figure out by the next season.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I look at. I look at it that this draft class, like I'm a Jalen Hurts guy, and for everything that you just said, off the field, he's got deficiencies. But the one thing we know about Jalen Hurts off the field, he's at least putting in the effort compared to someone like Ben Simmons. He's putting in the effort off the field to try to get better. Will he get better? We'll find out in 2022. But no one in this draft class has the same, Jalen Hurts' ceiling is here. Nobody in the draft class has a higher ceiling than him, really.
Yeah.
So why waste that capital on him? Give him this offseason. See what happens in 2022. We all knew one of those picks was going to get moved to 2023 so that we have that backup plan in case. But he earned the right to at least have the shot. And at least we know he's going to do everything in his power to improve. Will he improve? We'll find out in September. But at least we know he's trying to improve. So that's why I say there's zero chance. Because I don't know how many more times Howie has to say he's our guy. I know there's probably an attempt to get Russell Wilson or an attempt to get one of those guys. But once they didn't work out, the rest of these interviews with quarterbacks in the draft, it's all smoking guns. That's all.
I wouldn't be surprised. I really would not be surprised if a Matt Corral fell to the second. One of these guys are going to fall to the second.
So maybe in the second round. Okay, I'm talking first round picks. Yeah.
And I wouldn't be against it. If a Matt Corral fell to you in the second round, I would be so down to watch an open competition between him and Jalen. I am so down for that. I think that I've said this last year too. Even if it's Gardner Minshew, put some pressure on Jalen Hurts. We literally gave this kid a C at 23 years old. First year starting. I just don't agree with that. I just don't feel it's fair to him. I really don't. I feel like he came into it last year with everything handed to him, which is fair. It's fine. I'm not sitting here saying, we should have went and got this guy and that guy and that guy in the third. It's just that now we saw what you were. Now the pressure's on. We're not going to just hand you a captain. We're not just going to hand you the starting job. You got to earn this, and I feel like last year he was allowed to go through his bumps and his bruises. And now, listen, man, you're a year removed from, you're 3 years in. No matter how much we want to say last year was his rookie year, which used to just trigger me when people said that. No matter how much we want to say that was his rookie year, I understand it was his first year starting. You're now 3 years in the NFL, 3 years with an NFL team, 3 years with NFL trainers, coaches, players. There's no more excuse. There's no more excuse. You have 2 full off seasons behind you. It's time to either put up or shut up, and that's it. And it's not hating on him. It's not saying he's trash and I don't want him here. It's just the truth. We're going to pay you in a year. Do you feel comfortable giving him $35 million a year right now? No. So he's got to earn that right now. That's really where I stand on him. And I love him, though. Jalen Hurts' mom always comes on the channel and hates on me.
Gardner Minshew's a name that, we keep hearing rumors that Andre Dillard might be traded this weekend. Maybe Jalen Reagor gets moved. The last couple of days, I've seen a few little minor rumors that Gardner Minshew might be on the move. I like having Gardner Minshew. He's a super cheap option as that number 2 quarterback. If Jalen Hurts struggles, Gardner Minshew, I'm not a Minshew mania guy. I don't buy into him, this superstar level quarterback, but he's a great backup quarterback. He would probably be ranked as one of the best, if not the best, number 2 quarterback in the league at this point because of what he brings to the table. Do you see any of these? Do you see Gardner Minshew get traded, or do you see any of these guys get moved at least tonight? And I see people saying Jalen Reagor's got all this value. I don't buy that. Jalen Reagor's a throw-in prize in a trade. Andre Dillard might be gaining a little bit of value. And Gardner Minshew, I think if you're missing out on your quarterback, or if you're not sold, I hear a lot of rumors with Carolina and Gardner Minshew that they're not 100% sold maybe on Malik Willis. They rather make a trade, get an extra pick, move their quarterback future to next year, and go with Gardner Minshew because they're not gonna go into the season with just Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I find that interesting just because if they do that and try and grab Gardner Minshew, Howie has to realize that you're now sleeping with the enemy in a sense because we're going to probably be in that market for a quarterback next year too, possibly, right? So
it's a great
why make that trade and give them or why make that trade at a good price to them? So if depending on who calls me, right? If Gardner Minshew, if the Steelers called me and they're like, listen, we don't like any of these guys at 20 that we're going to get. we'll give you a third for our fourth or a fifth for Gardner Minshew, I'd be open to that. If the Panthers called me, I'm be like, it's probably going to cost you like a second or a third. I mean, like, why would I want to help you out right now when I'm probably going to be fighting with you next year to get in the top 10 to get a quarterback? So, we can probably fleece the Panthers. I just don't see that. I wouldn't mind Dillard moving on if you have no plans for him. I've said this from the beginning, and I know I get a lot of, flack for this, but to me, Andre Dillard is a very, very valuable piece of this team. You can never have enough good starting level tackles, even though he can only play the left side. If you can sit down with Dillard and say, can we teach you the right side? Is that something you are willing to do? Because Lane Johnson's not, going to be here forever. If you can say, listen, we got this kid in 2 years, we'll pay him, he's going to be our right tackle for the future, then all right, I'm cool with that. But if you have no plans of using him, I think you're doing him a disservice. You're doing this team a disservice if you don't trade him. So I think him alone has third round value, so at the very, very worst. So if you can add him to something like, say, the 15th Dillard, and now you're just giving up a 5th or a 6th round pick on top of that, and you're moving up into the top 10, I think that's beautiful. I think that's something that you can realistically
do. I like 2 weeks ago, I said something did I argue with you about this? I don't know. I argued with somebody.
I like to troll y'all in the morning, so
Somebody tweeted that they were going to move up to 6, the Eagles, to get one of the cornerbacks, I think, and they said all it was going to take was 15 Dillard and like a 5th round pick or something like that.
It might.
At first, I'm like, there's literally zero way that all it's going to take is Andre Dillard, because you throw a 5th round pick. It's really you're trading 15 and Andre Dillard. The 5th is just a little throw in there to spice it up. I really didn't think that was enough, but I mean, you make some good points that maybe Dillard has a little bit more value than I put out there.
Well, if you think about it like this from a perspective of a team like the Giants, which I don't think the Giants would necessarily be a team that wants to do business with us. Right. But you're sitting there at 7. All the offensive linemen are off the board now. You want to trade back anyways. If you can get yourself a starting left tackle or a starting, maybe the Giants is a bad example, but you know what I'm saying? Like a team that's thinking like, I want to get a tackle in this draft. Icky's gone, Evan Neal's gone. All these guys, Charles Cross is off the board. If Seattle might be a perfect spot. Somebody like that's sitting there saying, I want to get a tackle. All these guys, I don't like them. Andre Dillard's still on his rookie deal. Let's see if he does good this year. Then we can extend him, and boom, we have our left tackle of the future. I think it's worth it. I think left tackle is probably the second most important position on the field outside of quarterback. Like that, you have to have a good tackle. Have to.
Yeah. I mean, no, it's. I actually put the tackle almost above quarterback. I know quarterbacks drive the league, but that left tackle determines whether your quarterback has success or not. Exactly. Unless you have the elite of the elite quarterback, the tackle dictates pretty much the success level of your quarterback. If they're running for their life, if they're getting sacked all the time, then they're going to fail. So I don't know. So your dream scenario, we went over my dream scenario, and I want to know. So I got 2 dream scenarios. I want to be able to say tomorrow morning that we traded up if we had to, or we picked at 15, most likely trade up. I want to be able to say that we got yesterday one of 2 guys, Kyle Hamilton or Jameson Williams, with our first pick of the draft. That is,
you would trade up for Jameson Williams?
I mean, I would trade up a little bit. I wouldn't trade up a lot. I don't. If Jameson Williams starts to fall, he doesn't fall past Washington. Washington's kind of a wide receiver. So hold on, let me pull up a draft board here real quick. The order. Yeah, Washington at 11 needs a wide receiver. Or will get a wide receiver. I think Baltimore will be in the market for a wide receiver at 14. So you might have to move up to 10 to get him. Maybe 12. I don't think he falls any further than that. And that's all predicated on the wide receivers not going on a run. That everybody starts taking cornerbacks and edges early on. Maybe a quarterback or 2 goes early on. That's the only way it happens there. But I've wanted Jameson Williams. I've said since day one that the Eagles are going to draft a wide receiver. So that's scenario 1. And if not, if they trade up for Kyle Hamilton, that's equal to me. And if they trade up to get Kyle Hamilton, they better at 18 take another wide receiver. So it's either safety, wide receiver, or wide receiver and edge. And honestly, if you told me we got Jameson Williams and George Karlaftis I would call the first round a success, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Eagles are in a position to get like we can turn this team around. Like I won't say that we're going to be like a juggernaut after this draft because this could be the draft. Go back to when Fletcher Cox, when Jason Kelsey, when Zach Ertz, when they were all first brought onto this team. We weren't great. We were, more competitive than we kind of are right now, but we weren't great. But those were our core guys, right? Those were the guys that, ended up taking us to where we needed to be. And I think this is the type of draft that you can get that you can get 2 or 3 guys that are with you for the next 10 years, there's not many people on this team right now that you can say that about. Maybe Devontae Smith, maybe Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, maybe. Like outside of that,
we're not going to win a Super Bowl anytime in the next year or two. We know that, but if we could build the foundation of the team. This division is still very. I mean, we made the playoffs at 9-8 last year. This division isn't really getting any better. Nobody in the division has really made leaps and bounds. Movement.
Yeah, the whole conference got worse, if anything.
If anything, exactly. So, it's not hard to conceivably say that if we pick the right foundational pieces this draft, that we win the division in 2022. Now, will we make a run? Who knows what happens once the playoff comes? But there's a real legit shot that year 2 of Nick Sirianni getting better as a head coach, if you get the right foundational pieces, that we're a 10-11 win team. I'm not predicting that yet. You have to see the schedule. We got to see it all. But this is a crucial draft for Howie that sets it up for the next 3, 4, 5 years of whether it's Jalen Hurts, whether they go out and draft another quarterback, or I don't even know who the traded quarterbacks will be next year, But, there's a scenario where this draft dictates that future massively.
Yeah. Facts. Yeah. And then it's going to be fun. I love drafts. Obviously having all these picks is going to be crazy. I'm going to be live for like literally every minute of the draft. So I'm going to get coffee as soon as I get off of here, like big, bags of just coffee. It's going to be fun though. This is a big draft. I feel like we say it every year, right? As Eagles fans, every year is a big draft, but this is something huge, not just for
we're in that transitional phase.
Exactly.
We're not we're retooling, and this draft could speed that retool up.
Exactly.
Really. The problem for me tonight, this is a huge draft, and I'm gonna have to. I have multiple laptops in the house. I'm gonna have to move this laptop over a little bit, get another laptop set. I'm gonna have to have the Sixers game on this screen. I'm gonna have to have the Giants going on this screen. Plus, we're gonna be live too. I'm not gonna be live the whole time, but I'm gonna have to have 3 monitors set up here in my office because there's literally that much going on tonight.
Yeah, luckily I'm not a Sixers fan, so I won't be watching. You guys better win though, because all the junk y'all was talking to me. That's all I'm saying. But if you guys blow this 3-0 lead, oh man, I'm really good on Photoshop. I'm just gonna let you know that.
Tonight. Will the Sixers find in Game 6 tonight? That is the question.
Y'all better win that game. That's all I can say. I will cry laughing if you guys lose that game.
I don't want to look. I said it. So me and my boy Scotty, we were coming up next on DSM Media 10 o'clock. Scotty Talks NBA. There's a big Sixers Raptors Game 6 preview. Myself and Scotty recorded it last night. So make sure you stay locked in for that at 10 a.m. But I said it on the episode that will air in literally 30-some minutes. There is literally no way the Sixers blow a 3-0 lead. There's a reason why it's never happened in the NBA. You do not lose 4 games in a row in the NBA playoffs. Just don't do it. Yeah. I think I had originally
Embiid. That might, I don't think you will. I think you will win this game, but that injury to Embiid, man, that's one thing. I do have a lot of Sixers friends, fan friends, and I have no hate against the Sixers. I think it's more of just that since I am a friend of all these people, it's just fun to talk that talk. And it seems like the Nets and the Sixers are starting to form a little rivalry, which is cool. But that injury to Embiid, man, he's your team. James Harden is a cancer. You guys talk as much junk as y'all want about Ben Simmons. Y'all got to deal with James Harden. He's going to diva up, especially if y'all don't make the championship. You already seeing that he's not the shooter that he once was.
I wanted to wrap it up. I wanted to get your thoughts. I was going to make Ben Simmons jokes, but as a Nets guy, you've seen James Harden. So I put out a poll last week or 2 weeks ago. when I think it was like the last game of the season or the first game of the playoffs, is James Harden X, Y, and Z? I said, is he washed? Is he injured? Is he not who we thought he was? Like I put out this poll. So what is James Harden? Why is it just because, my opinion, he's 34. He's had 12 years of banging, driving, playing a hard thing. He doesn't have that, the jump in his step back isn't the same. The aggressiveness he drives the hoops, it's not the same. And it's just simple wear and tear on the body. And that's what I see. But you guys saw it more because you guys had him, for about a year there.
Well, it's tough because with the Nets, I feel like he was asked to play a different game. Like, we asked him to be more of a point guard, but you guys are too. So I don't know if that's really just what he feels comfortable doing now. I see a lot of him more willing to defer than to be that, deadly dude like, oh, I'm 10 feet behind the 3-point line. I don't care. Bang. You know what I'm saying? He just doesn't have that. I don't know. He doesn't have that killer in him anymore. Like, it might be that he's old and he's just a little bit hobbled, but like, he just wasn't that guy. It felt like if everybody else around him isn't doing it, he's just gonna, I don't know. I just feel like he doesn't have that killer instinct in him. As far as a basketball player, he does basically everything the same way. It's just that all these shots aren't falling anymore. He's not getting the exuberant amount of freaking foul calls that he used to. And it happened in Brooklyn too. So I'm not saying it's just, now in Philly, but in Brooklyn, he wasn't getting no calls. You know what I'm saying? Like, he wasn't getting any calls. So I think that the game changed a little bit and he can't really keep up with how the game is changing. Cause I think that they're keying in on a lot of the little tricks that he did that, the swing through and all that.
The pump on the three and lean in for the foul. He doesn't get that anymore. So he has to dribble, step back three. But I watch literally every one of his step back threes, and it looks like every single time he does it, there's less and less jump back.
Yeah,
that's a little bit less. And that's the legs. Dude, I'm old. I'm 41. Dude, I was never much of a jumper. I'm a 6'2" right now. But I kind of feel like I could probably, with my hobbled leg, with my metal in my legs, I can probably get more step back than James Harden at this point at a much slower pace because I don't move, at all.
Yeah,
but seriously,
I don't like Harden.
Look,
Harden is exactly the same as Ben Simmons.
I got a Harden jersey right away. No.
Harden, I'll tell you right now, Harden is the same. And, Ben Simmons, I understand you guys hate him for good reason. You guys deserve to hate him.
Hold on. Let me preface that. Let me jump there. I never hated Ben Simmons till this season. I was a Ben Simmons guy.
I respect that. I
stood by his side, and I feel like the clown now because even in the offseason, I'm like, well, if we make this adjustment and this adjustment, they work in the offseason together, this team can do it. I loved what Ben Simmons could potentially be with Joel Embiid if they had the right shooters around them and all that stuff. It was the way he handled this season that finally made me turn on Ben Simmons. So I was a Ben Simmons. Scotty, I've been on a million Scotty talk shows, and I kept saying, no, don't trade Ben. Don't trade Ben. Don't trade Ben. And now it's like, dude, I would do the trade. Even if James Harden fails as a Sixer, I would still make that trade 1,000 times over.
But I think that's the same way that Nets fans feel, to be honest with you, because, dude, James Harden didn't want to play for us. James Harden faked the injury too. Like, he ended up playing for you guys, which is awesome. But like, he did the same thing that Ben Simmons did, except he did it twice for two different teams. So like, I really have no respect for what James Harden, how he played, and especially because you wanted to. Like, I know that you guys were his first choice. Don't get me wrong. But you said you wanted to come and play with Kyrie and KD. Kyrie, I understand that, he didn't play half the season, and it is what it is. I can't sit here and fault him. I really can't. I don't like Kyrie. I never liked Kyrie. I know he's on my team, and that sounds weird. But I can't fault him for a decision like that. I can't say to another man, no, you have to do this because I'm a fan of a sport. Right. I just can't do that. And I can't sit here and be upset with him. It sucks and it did hurt our team, but he's a man and he made a decision as a man. I'm not going to hate on you for that. And I think that, New York was a little bit dumb for that decision anyways. They were kind of screwing him over because obviously, Thibault wasn't vaccinated and nobody knew because it wasn't that big of a deal, but New York made it a big deal when it shouldn't have happened. So I don't hate on Kyrie for how he handled his, personal decisions, but for James Harden to act like a little punk just because it got a little hard. Like, just because KD got hurt and you had to be the star, like you're soft to me. I have no respect for that. Like I feel the same way that a lot of y'all feel about it.
I'll end it right here. I said it last night on the show that'll air at 10 a.m. in just a little bit here. That James Harden is playing himself into being forced to pick up that player option for next year. Because the way he's played the last 2 or 3 weeks, the way he's played the last year, nobody's going to give him a 4-year, $200 million contract at this point. He's going to have no choice. I haven't decided whether I want him back next year or not. But he's not going to have many options, so he might have to pick up that $35 million player option next year, which means we're stuck with James Harden $35 million.
What team that's like close to a championship is realistically going to say, oh, James Harden is the missing piece? After you just saw what happened to these two teams.
The only team that would take him at this point is a struggling team that wants to sell tickets.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He's playing himself into a terrible position because he wanted to be a ring chaser and be in it. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with you trying to, pad your legacy. But, bro, you got to play like a player. You have to actually go out there and give your all. You're not just going to get a ring because you're there. You know what I'm saying? So
I think we're on the same page. Even though you're a Nets fan and I'm a Sixers fan, I think we're on the same page there.
Yeah.
This is my man, Joe Castro, at Philly TP. Philly the podcast. Dude, I love watching your stuff, man. You do great work over there, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate your time. Hey, lately we've been doing Sixers and 5 as our sign off, but it's draft day. So it's got to be Go Birds as we sign off the air. This is Phil Stiefel, trending in the AM. This is Joe Castro, Philly the pod. Yo, everybody have a great day. Enjoy the draft tonight. Sixers, let's lock it up and, Go Birds.